Alrighty, we are just preparing to begin this stream in just a moment. I'm just getting some materials in order. If you are tuning into the replay, this means that I did not edit this video yet. It also means that this is my time to tell you, to ask you to submit a like, to like this video, or to at least subscribe to my channel, especially if you might want to see more content of this type in the future. What I'm presently doing is looking for a single picture, something that can represent what we are watching, what you are going to be watching in a moment. Oh, okay, that can do. Yeah, you know what? I think that can do the trick right there. Alright, let's see here. Secondary monitor. And then we just have to resize it. Wow. Okay, almost ready for the stream. Oops. I forgot to do one important thing. There we go. Almost ready. Thank you for your patience. Although you can always skip ahead, and by the time this video is completely done, it should have been edited so that you are not watching this part. But once again, like and subscribe, skip ahead. Hopefully I put chapter markers in. Hopefully the link looks good wherever I promote it. And hopefully when everything is said and done, this will be fun to watch. Alrighty, almost got the link out in all of my favorite places on the internet. So we got this guy, that guy, this guy's place. Don't know what it would take to update that. Okay. You know what? This time I need to make sure that I actually put the link to this picture into the video description, because that just would not be nice. Well, that's rough. I may not know whose picture of the strike this is, but I really hate using people's pictures. So real quick, I'm just looking for a link so that I can give credit to the original artist who painted or drew this picture, because I really don't like, you know, stealing people's artwork. And I think it's worth taking the time. Ah, yeah, here we go. I found it. Good. We can update the description of this video. There we go. The artwork is not mine. Please check out this artist's, the work of this artist. Work of the independent who created the illustration. In this video. There we go. Okay, we are all set. So we have the illustration. I think we're going to make an adjustment to the format which I utilized last time I did a video of this type. Instead of going straight into a reading, I'm going to try to give people an opportunity to file in. And to that end, I'm just going to open up a page in my book. Hopefully I don't fall into yawning so quickly. And we'll talk about a little bit of what we're looking at here. This here is book number 3 of the Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons. The title of this particular book is Endymion, which I'm not going to be specific on who or what Endymion is. But if you read the first or second chapter of the first book of the Hyperion Cantos, the title of that book being Hyperion, there is a reference to a city, in fact a agricultural university or college in the city of Endymion on the planet Hyperion. And this will become relevant later on in the saga, but a lot of things will not become abundantly obvious, such as, for example, the reason I even discovered this series of books is because I was Googling the topic on how do inertial dampers work in, say, Star Trek. And one of the answers appeared on Quora, the question website, you know, where they answer questions. And the person who answered, one of the, like person number 5 or number 3 who answered a question, you know what, they gave a long answer, but late in their answer they said that they liked the way that the issue. So what does inertial dampers do? What do inertial dampers do? They solve the fact that when you are under high acceleration, the human body is prone to turning into raspberry jam. And so to prevent that, you need a piece of technology that will absorb or dampen or reduce those forces, whether it be a sharp turn or sharpened maneuvers. And different sci-fi books deal with this in different ways. For example, in Star Trek and Star Wars, they wave their hand, they got inertial dampers. In The Expanse, they have the juice. They have special seats with some kind of gel cushioning, as they are described in the books in greater detail, and you are injected with drugs like steroids to, you know, help you strengthen up your blood vessels, helps your body absorb the forces better, and also medications which prevent stroking, because you don't want to stroke out, which is a high risk. in another sci-fi book I read, which I can't remember the name of it, but I believe it was written by Dennis E. Taylor, if I'm remembering correctly, there was an emergency where they had to deploy the Earth, or UN had to deploy a ship in, a quick reaction force to respond to a situation in the solar system, and they knew that there would be a 5% chance, or a 5% amount of the total crew would succumb or at least be injured by the fact that you can't guarantee that people won't stroke out when you go above a certain level of acceleration. Because it's not so much the speed that kills you, it's the acceleration. Once your car is going like 100 miles an hour, assuming that you don't have to make any turns or slow down, you won't even feel it. But when you're going from 20 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour in a short period of time, you will feel it. And so when a car is advertised to go from 0 to 60 in 7 seconds or whatever it is, you feel it. You are pulled to the back of your seat. And when you're doing that with a rocket engine, it gets rougher, it gets harder, and it gets faster. And I'm almost tempted to segue into another topic, but I think I'm going to save that for the end of this reading. And while I hope for more people to tune in, because this is a live stream, maybe I should schedule these ahead of time and talk about them. But there is a video I saw the other day on a somewhat prominent flat earther or moon hoaxer's YouTube channel. Definitely flat earther. This guy, of course, the disbelief in the moon landings and flat earth go together part and parcel, I believe the term is. It doesn't necessarily mean that anybody who doubts the moon landings is a flat earther, because I know people who doubt the moon landings but have no doubt that the earth is round. But those who, don't believe the earth is round definitely also don't believe in the moon landings. And so in a video, let's see here, a guy basically makes fun of animations and stuff of the, physics of the earth orbiting the sun, and thinks it's a big joke, and then shows a flying saucer ride at an amusement park. And so briefly I can show you the video here, and in this example the assertion is that if you're on the earth moving at any kind of spinning velocity, you would know about it. And let's get the sound up.
So basically, you trust your senses, which according to you is inferior to science. But in our case, we know that our mind and senses are superior. And if we can't feel the spin and wobble under our feet, we reach the conclusion that we do not live on a spinning ball. Remember, mind creates science. Science cannot create the mind. You do not need science to cross a busy street. You need your mind and senses.
So basically the assertion is that if you are in a situation like this, you can feel that you're spinning rapidly, and you know that, you can't distinguish being stuck to the, you can totally distinguish, I should say. You can distinguish being stuck to the wall on a flying saucer ride versus standing on the ground. And chances are, if you were to try to stand up on there, you would also be challenged. Your senses, in a way, I guess you could argue that the guy is sort of correct. Your senses would actually tell you that you're not standing on the surface of a planet, you're in a flying saucer ride. But what the presenter fails to see, and of course they, are at a freaking amusement park, so you're not gonna really get a pretty good simulation of what they're trying to you're not gonna be able to challenge their claims at an amusement park. Heck, I wouldn't even consider their claims to be very valid, but how do I phrase it? If you were to stand up on the walls of that flying saucer ride, let's say it was designed a little differently, because of course this particular flying saucer ride has slanted walls, and that's because they want you to be able to sit in these sliding cushions, and it's kind of cool. You're standing on the floor, it spins up, and then the cushion slides up on a track. At least on some of the flying saucer rides I've been on, that's how they work. Maybe not this one, but even then, you could rotate your body, you can go sideways. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. Sometimes you can even go upside down if you want, and it's a pretty cool experience. I remember the first time I found out this was a thing, I was like, I got to try this out, and it's a darn good time. But you can't really stand up in there for two reasons. I guess one, the slanted angle, it's just kind of hard to stand on that awkwardly angled wall, or, de facto floor, so to speak. But more importantly is Coriolis. And, you can imagine this, you can depict it if you're a good sci-fi writer. There's one or two who have, such as in the Expanse universe. They put a lot of but Coriolis is taken into account a lot. And basically, the poor people live closer to the center of the station, or closer to the center of spin, and the wealthier people tend to live further towards the edge, because you're going to have stronger gravity, and you're not going to be subject to Coriolis. As you have a smaller thing such as this flying saucer ride, if they did make the walls flat as opposed to angular or sloped, the difference between the amount of gravity from your legs to your head would be different at each level. Furthermore, you would have that Coriolis effect. If they had maybe a means of spraying water in there, perhaps from the ceiling or something like that, the water wouldn't go straight from, say, halfway from the center. So, do I have something that can simulate? So, if this was our flying saucer ride, it's spinning around. If you had water, say, somewhere here. Let's say you have a stationary mount right here, and it's spraying water from my fingertip, and it's like an L shape. Would the water go straight from my fingertip to the wall? Or not? And in reality, it would make a bit of a spiral. It would go to the wall, but it would be making a spiral path. Of course, the water is just kind of going straight, but the wall is moving. Now, of course, if you spray the water from a nozzle that's mounted to the spinning ceiling, it will sort of move, but you're going to have that spiral thing like a hurricane happening. And I wish I could articulate it a little better, but, at least what I'm describing is grounded in something that can be demonstrated. Yeah, that can be demonstrated. So when this gentleman is standing in the amusement park and just kind of taking video of this crap spinning and talking about why it's ridiculous to think the earth is round and how you should trust your senses, the reality is he's not really conducting any experiments. He's just making observations here. But observation is only one step of the process. The other step of the process is to actually conduct an experiment. And to that end, having a water gun would go a long way. Now, of course, I don't know how you can mount a water gun to the ceiling, but you know what? I'm not the one making the extraordinary claim. the guy publishing this video and the guy whose video clip,
Science.
that guy is making the extraordinary claim. So he's under the obligation to try harder, and if he doesn't want to do that, well, tough shit. I mean, you know, some people are gonna buy into it. I'm not even saying trust the science, I'm just saying this ain't it. Now, to be fair, I kind of jested a little bit. I said the flying saucer ride kind of disproves the point being made. The guy who posted the video asked me how to please explain. And realistically, I was kind of being a smartass, and maybe I should have picked a better angle because, I mean, like, I just said it. The flying saucer ride, it doesn't really prove or disprove anything. I can't, you know, say that my senses can't sense I'm on a flying saucer ride. I can argue that, oh, the motor is vibrating. Oh, I can feel the acceleration. I mean, this is not a precise, you know, motor here. This is kind of like an amusement park ride, you know. I mean, it's not using precision engineered motors. Even if it was using precision engineered motors, I wouldn't expect to be, you know, unable to sense it. What needs to be done is two things, or either one of two things, ideally both things. One, an experiment involving water in order to observe the Coriolis effect. Two, the use or construction of and use of a larger version of this flying saucer ride, but of course with flat walls, like a cylinder. Flat as in not sloped. Of course, they're going to be curved. And with that, build it big enough, and the participants in there will not be able to sense that they are spinning. In fact, I believe experiments have been done to this end with varying levels of success, but in earlier experiments, the main thing is if it's too small, the people on board do have to get used to the Coriolis effect, the difference between the, you know, gravity or the centrifugal force on their legs versus their upper body, and how that wreaks havoc with your, what the heck is that term? There's a fancy vestibular senses. Your vestibule. Well, there was an episode of Space Above and Beyond about it, and I don't think I'm gonna win. I'm not gonna win many flat earthers by referencing a TV show about space. But let's get to the topic here, and I better make a chapter marker when I'm doing this. So, reference note chapter marker will begin at 23:10. And I guess we'll just put introduction and ranting at everything before that. So first of all, like I said, in the Quora question I read when I was trying to learn about inertial dampers on Star Trek, the answer basically involved a long explanation followed by, let's get this crap off my screen, followed by a reference to Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos. What the person answering the question did not say was that he was referencing material from a later book in the series, but what he mentioned was the Catholic Church got their hands on an alien technology that was able to bring people back from the dead. And so when a ship went faster than light or accelerated in such a way that it would turn you into raspberry mush, this alien technology would be able to resurrect you and recreate your body, bring you back to life. And so that is the solution. Who needs inertial dampers when you can kill the passenger and bring them back to life? Now, of course, in the Hyperion Cantos universe, they do have containment fields, but them alone are not sufficient in many situations. They help, they can work to varying degrees of, effect, but there comes a point where there is a limit, and there are other intricacies to the technology being used that prevent or that are inimical to human life. So with that, now I have to once again make another time index 2504, so 2510. So let's go and get to it. We're gonna skip ahead to chapter 7, and we're gonna just drop into the middle of this universe. The torch ships Balthazar, Melchior, and Gaspar are a full AU beyond the burning orbital forests, and still decelerating around the unnamed sun when Mother Commander Stone buzzes at Father Captain DeSawyer's compartment portal to inform him that the couriers have been resurrected. Ah, shit. Went too far. Gotta go back a chapter. Whoops, I went forward a chapter. So what we're gonna do is, once again, I'll explain. We're gonna, without further ado, we're gonna just drop ourselves right into the middle of the universe here. And we're gonna read a passage, a couple of passages for that matter. There we go. Okay, once again, we're gonna drop ourselves. We are going to drop straight into the middle of the universe of this book without any explanation beyond that which I've already provided in long-winded fashion. Chapter 5. At the same moment that I am taking my leave with A. Beddick, 6,000 light years away in a star system known only by NGC numbers and navigation coordinates, a PAX task force of 3 fast attack torch ships led by Father Captain Federico de Sawyer is destroying an orbital forest. The ouster trees have no defenses against the PAX warships, and the encounter might be described more accurately as a slaughter than a battle. I must explain something here. I am not speculating about these events. They occurred precisely as I described them, nor am I extrapolating or guessing in the scenes I am about to share when I tell you what Father Captain de Sawyer or the other principals did when there were no witnesses present, or that what they thought, or what emotions they felt. These things are literal truth. Later I will explain how I came to know these things, to know them without hint of distortion, but for now I ask that you accept them for what they are, the truth. The PAX attack... The 3 PAX torch ships drop from relativistic velocities under more than 600 gravities of deceleration, what spacefarers for centuries have called Raspberry Jam Delta V, meaning, of course, that if the internal containment fields were to fail for a microsecond, the crew would be little more than a layer of raspberry jam on the deck plates. The containment fields do not fail. At 1 AU, Father Captain de Sawyer brings up the orbital forest in the viewsphere. Everyone in the combat control center pauses to glance at the display. Several thousand of the ouster-tailored trees, each at least a kilometer long, move in an elaborate choreography along the plane of the ecliptic. Gravity-clustered corpses, braided strands, and subtly shifting patterns of trees, always moving, their leaves always turned toward the G-type sun, their long branches shifting to find the perfect alignment. Their thirsty roots deep in the vaporous fog of moisture and nutrients provided by the shepherd comets moving among the forest clusters like giant dirty snowballs, floating between the branches of these trees, and between the trees themselves. Ouster variants are visible, humanoid shapes with silver reflective skin and micron-thin butterfly wings extending hundreds of meters. These wings catch the sunlight from moment to moment as they open and blink like brilliant Christmas lights within the green foliage of the orbital forest. "Fire!" says Father Captain Destroyer. At 2/3 AU, the 3 torch ships of PAX Task Force Magi open up with their long-distance weapons. At that distance, energy beams would seem to crawl toward their targets, like lightning bugs on a black bed sheet, but the PAX ships carry hypervelocity and hyperkinetic weapons, essentially small Hawking-drive starships in their own right, some carrying plasma warheads, which are spun up to relativistic velocities in microseconds to detonate within the forest. Others designed simply to drop back into real space, their mass enlarged to plow through the trees like cannonballs, fire through wet cardboard at point-blank range. Minutes later, the 3 torch ships are within energy beam distance, and the CPBs lance out in 1,000 directions simultaneously, their beams visible because of the riot of colloidal particles now filling space like dust in an old attic. The forest burns, tailored bark, tube pods, and self-sealing leaves burst in from violent decompression, or are sawed through by beams and shaped plasma blast tendrils, and the escaping globules of oxygen fuel the fire and amid the vacuum until the air freezes or burns away. And the forest burns. Tens of millions of leaves fly away from the exploding forest, each leaf or cluster of leaves its own blazing pyre, while trunks, branches burn against the black background of space. The shepherd comets are struck and then volatilize in an instant, blasting the braided strands of forest apart in expanding shockwaves of steam and molten rock fragments. Space-tailored ousters, Lucifer's angels, as the PAX forces have contemptuously called them for centuries, are caught in the explosions like translucent moths in a flame. Some are simply blown apart by the plasma explosions or comet bursts. Others are caught in the path of CPBs and become hyperkinetic objects themselves before their delicate wings and organs are flung apart. Some attempt to flee, expanding their solar wings to maximum in a vain attempt to outrun the carnage. None survive. The encounter takes less than 5 minutes. When it's done, the Magi task force decelerates through the forest at a diminished 30 gravities. The fusion flame tails of the torch ship igniting any tree fragments that have escaped the initial attack, where the forest had floated in space 5 minutes before, green leaves catching the sunlight, roots drinking the spheres of comet water, ouster angels floating like radiant gossamers among the branches. Now there is only a torus of smoke and expanding debris filling the plane of the ecliptic along this arc of space. "Any survivors?" asks Father Captain Destroyer, standing along the edge of the C3 central display, his hands clasped behind his back, balancing easy with only the balls of his feet touching the stick-tight strip around the display rim. Despite the fact that the torch ship is still decelerating under 30 gravities, the combat control center is held in a constant 1/15th standard G microgravity, The dozen of officers in the room sit and stand with their heads toward the center of sphere. Destroyer is a short man in his mid-30s standard. His face is round, the skin dark, and friends had noticed over the years that his eyes reflected priestly compassion more frequently than military ruthlessness. They are troubled now. No survivors. Gotta put on a woman's voice. No survivors, says Mother Commander Stone, Destroyer's executive officer and another Jesuit. She turns from the tactical display to shunt into a blinking comm unit. Destroyer knows that none of his officers in the C3 are pleased by this engagement. Destroying Ouster Orbital Forest is part of their mission. The seemingly innocuous trees serve as refueling and refitting centers for the combat swarms, but few Pax warriors take pleasure in a wanton destruction. They were trained as knights of the church, defenders of the Pax, not as destroyers of beauty or murderers of unarmed life forms, even if those life forms were tailored ousters who had surrendered their souls. Lay in the usual pattern, Destroyer orders. Tell the crew to stand down from battle stations. On a modern torch ship, the crew consists of only these dozen officers and a half-dozen others spread throughout the ship. Suddenly, Mother Commander Stone interrupts. Sir, a Hawking drive distortion, reading up angle 72, coordinates 2, 29, 4305, C plus exit point at 70.5 thousand clicks. Probability of single vehicle 96%, relative velocity unknown. Full battle stations, says Destroyer. He smiles slightly without being aware of doing so. Perhaps the ousters are rushing to the rescue of their forest, or perhaps there was a single defender and it has just launched a standoff weapon from somewhere beyond the system's Oort cloud. Or perhaps it is the vanguard of an enemy swarm, an entire swarm of ouster fighting units, and his task force is doomed. Whatever the threat, Father Captain Destroyer prefers a fight to this vandalism. Vehicle is translating, reports the acquisition officer from his perch above Destroyer's head. Very good, says Father Captain Destroyer. He watches the displays flicker before his eyes, resets his shunt, and opens several virtual optic channels. Now the C3 fades away and he stands in space, a giant 5 million clicks tall, seeing his own ships like specks with flaming tails. The curved column of smoke that is the destroyed forest bending past at belt height, and now this intruder flicking into existence 700,000 clicks and an arm reach above the plane of the ecliptic. Red spheres around his ships show external fields at combat strength. Other colors fill space, displaying sensor readings, acquisition pulses, and targeting preparation. Working on the millisecond tactical level, Destroyer can launch weapons or unleash energies by pointing and snapping his fingers. Transponder beacon, reports the comm officer. Current codes check out. It is Pax Courier. It is a Pax Courier, Archangel class. Destroyer frowns. What can be so important that the Pax Command is sending the Vatican's fastest vehicle? A craft so swift that it is also the Pax's greatest secret weapon. Destroyer can see the Pax codes surrounding the tiny ship in tactical space. Its fusion flames reach scores of kilometers. The ship is using almost no energy on internal containment fields, and the gravities involved are beyond Raspberry Jam levels. Uncrewed, queries Destroyer. He desperately hopes so. Archangel class ships can travel anywhere in known space within days. Real time, days. rather than the weeks of ship time and years of real time demanded by all of the craft. But no one survives Archangel voyages. Mother Commander Stone steps into the tactical environment with him. Her black tunic is almost invisible against space, so that her pale face seems to float above the ecliptic sunlight from the virtual star illuminating her sharp cheekbones. "No, sir," she says softly. Her voice can be heard only by the Destroyer in this mode. "Beacon indicates 2 members of the crew in fugue." "Dear Jesus," whispers Destroyer, "it is more prayer than curse. Even in high-G fugue tanks, these 2 people, already killed during C+ travel, will now become more a micro-thin layer of protein paste than healthy raspberry jam. Prepare the resurrection crutches," he says on the comm band. Mother Commander Stone touches the shunt behind her ear and frowns. "Message embedded in code. Human couriers are to be resurrected. Priority Alpha. Dispensation level Omega." Father Captain Destroyer's head snaps around and he stares at his executive officer. I'm trying to just snap my head. Let me try that again. That work? Okay. And he stares at his executive officer for a silent moment. The smoke from the burning orbital forest swirls around their waists. Priority resurrection defies the doctrine of the Church and the rules of Pax Command. It is also dangerous. The chances for incomplete reintegration go from near 0 at the usual 3-day rate to almost 50% at the 3-hour level, and priority level Omega means His Holiness on Pacham. Destroyer sees the knowledge in his exec's eyes. This courier ship is from the Vatican. Either someone there or someone in the Pax Command, or both, considered this message so important enough to send an irreplaceable Archangel courier ship to kill 2 high-ranking Pax officers, since no one else would be trusted with an Archangel, and to risk incomplete reintegration of those same 2 officers. In tactical space, Destroyer raises his eyebrows in response to his exec's questioning look. On the command band he says, "Very well, Commander. Instruct all 3 ships to match velocities. Prepare a boarding party. I want the fugue tanks transferred and resurrection completed by 0630 hours. Please give my compliments to Captain Hearn on the Melchior and Mother Captain Boulez on the Gaspar, and ask them to join me on the Balthazar for a meeting with the couriers at 0700. Father Captain Destroyer steps from tactical space to the reality of the C3. Command Stone and the others are still looking at him. "Quickly," says Destroyer, and kicks off from the display room, flying across the space to his private door and pulling himself through the circular hatch. "Wake me when the couriers are resurrected," he says to the white faces watching him in the seconds before the door shuts. So, interestingly, the next chapter takes place on a different planet and from the eyes of a different character. But the chapter after that takes place on Father Captain Destroyer's ship once again. And for the next video, I think I'm just going to skip ahead because, I really love the space combat from these books. Don't get me wrong. All of the chapters in between matter too. Very important to the story. Why, this picture you're looking at on the background here, you may not know what's going on right now in this picture, but it happens in those off chapters. So, yeah. A lot to look forward to in this book. I highly recommend it. If you have time for a long-ass book. It is a darned long book, but I recommend it. And if you simply don't mind an audiobook experience, I recommend that as well. And with that, I think we're going to about end it here tonight. I'll have to put the chapter markers in. But yeah, I mean, like, I can listen to this book a million times, and that's why I'm doing some readings now. I definitely can improve a lot at the reading aspect, and I think we definitely need to have more mixed media happening. But you know, I think I read a little bit during live streams and do a couple of more refined videos on the topic. But bottom line, that was an excerpt from Book 3 of the Hyperion Cantos, Endymion by Dan Simmons. A fantastic sci-fi book that goes beyond being sci-fi. And with that, once again, like and subscribe. And if you didn't like the video, subscribe so you can watch more videos and perhaps like or dislike those videos in the future. If you click the bell, you'll always get notified, so if you hate my content, you can hate it more. And if you like it, well, you should definitely do that. But if you're not sure if you like my videos, you should always like them proactively, because you can always retroactively retract the like later if you don't forget. But with that, I thank you for watching, and have a good day.